If you want to scale to 20K a month as an online fitness coach, the biggest thing holding your business back right now isn't your content, isn't your offer, and it's not that you need more leads. It's this. You have a solid week, a few clients are coming in, and things feel like they're finally clicking. But then the next week, things drop off again. You sit down to post content, and instead of just executing, you hesitate, tweak it, overthink it, because you're not fully sure on the direction or the intention behind the content that you're making. Or you take on a client and halfway through working together, you realize that they're actually draining your time and energy, pushing back on everything, but you suck it up and sign them on anyway because you didn't want to miss out on the money. And you're probably at a point now where you know you should be growing, probably raising your prices and wanting to attract higher quality clients, but instead you stay where it feels comfortable. And you tell yourself you'll fix it later. From the outside, everything looks like it's doing well. But on the inside, you're anxious. Everything feels inconsistent, reactive, and way more fragile than it should be. And most people think it's a strategy problem, whereas in reality, it's not. What's actually happening is that you're trying to grow a business with the mindset of a coach instead of thinking and operating like a business owner. And this gap that you're feeling is what's holding you back from growing to your full potential. So in this video, you're gonna watch a full training that breaks down the exact mindset shifts you need to make as you move from a coach to an operator, personal red flags and behaviors that actually stop you to scaling to the points in where you actually can, the red flags in clients that you should be aware of that drain your time, energy, and results, and the different phases you need to go through as a coach if you actually want to build something sustainable and not just something that looks good for the short term. Because once you're aware of these patterns, you're actually able to stop guessing and actually start making the steps forward to hit those 20,000, 30,000, heck, even bigger months that you've always wanted. And if we haven't met yet, my name is JP, the founder of the Revive and Thrive Operator Advisory. I work with online fitness coaches who are stuck anywhere between 5 to 10K a month and help them break past these plateaus to scale to 20K, 30K months and beyond. I've helped 5 coaches scale past 20K a month and another 5 scale past 10K a month. So everything I'm about to walk you through here isn't theory, it's what actually shows up when coaches try and make this transition and actually start getting to the place where they want to be in their business. And just to show you this isn't theory, one of my clients, Nick, a hybrid coach doing face-to-face and online coaching, was doing well on paper. He had 40 in-person clients doing around 6 to 8K a month, but he was working over 40 hours in the gym, plus another 10 to 20 hours a week doing back-end work. He had essentially no time for himself and everything relied on him. And on top of this, the idea of actually scaling completely stressed him out and was practically impossible given the amount of time he was spread thin between everything. But once we started working together and fixed how he operates, how he actually structured his business, and how he makes decisions, things completely changed. He's now hitting 12K a month consistently, signing $1,500 paid in fulls, one legitimately today and then one on the weekend, has hit multiple 5K weeks since starting together, and has actually brought on the right support to help him grow the business properly. He's got someone helping him with his face-to-face sessions whilst he works on the online business at home. And we're now building him a content team, including a videographer, a long form and a short form editor, so that way he can actually focus on what moves the needle. So everything I spoke about in that particular training that I'm going to show speaks about exactly what we did with Nick and what I've done with the other clients that I've worked with. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Ladies and gentlemen, workshop team, business mindset and red flags. Last week, we did LTV and retention frameworks. But this week, we're going on to business mindset and red flags because I feel like we've done a lot of like tangible, okay, this is how we do what, this is how we do X, Y, and Z, but we haven't really talked about how to approach these things from like a higher level, right? And just by focusing on personal things, but also operational things business-wise, but even like prospecting clients as well. Those 3 things are like really, really important for building business, right? And then obviously on top of that, how to actually think like a business owner, not just a coach, and actually spot patterns that silently kill growth over time. So let's get right into it. So the goal of the module tonight is 1, understand the difference between a coach's mindset and then a business mindset. 2, learn how to identify personal, client, and operational red flags early. 3, how to rebuild how you approach decisions, how you obviously approach your time, and how to approach growth from a CEO lens, not necessarily a coach's lens. And then finally, walk away with a practical framework so you can stay grounded as we continue to scale. Are we excited?
Yes.
Yes. Love the enthusiasm, Jules. Thanks. All right. Why this matters is because 1, great offers and great businesses fail because of poor decision making long term. 2, with a business mindset, without a business mindset, every challenge that you face can feel personal. 3, the biggest bottlenecks at scale, right, and just in general, aren't actually external factors that happen to you. It's actually you, right? It's actually your personal,
anything that's happening to you, right, is actually what's holding you back most of the time. And fourthly, you can't build consistency unless obviously, can't build consistency externally until you build it internally, right? So that's obviously quite an intuitive thing. I think that all of us, can embody being obviously disciplined in our fitness, nutrition, recovery, and all that. But it obviously needs to be translated into business as well. But let's get right into it. So I've just got a quick little table of a coach versus a business owner's mindset and the differences between the two. So the first, obviously, difference, I guess, is coaches are typically focused on day-to-day tasks, whereas business owners or business mindsets are focused on long-term leverage. Secondly, coach's mindset typically can be emotionally reactive at times, right? Whereas a business owner is more data-driven and measured. Coach's mindset trains time for money, whereas a business owner builds systems for scale. Coach's mindset obviously consequently takes quite quick wins fast, but in terms of a business mindset, the business owner invests for compounding returns in the long term. And I think one of the biggest ones that build not even just coaches, but even just anyone in business that holds a lot of people back is being afraid to delegate, right? And obviously, being a good business owner and a good founder, you need to build trust and structure with the people that you obviously work with, right, and employ. You got to feel like you're not necessarily coaching just clients, but you're actually building an asset that serves people, frees up my time, and actually works without me there. That's the end goal that we all should be striving for at the end of the day, if we want to get to that point. But now we're going to go through some personal red flags, right, and internal traps that keep you stuck, right, within business and growth, obviously just in life, I think, as well, in general. First is consuming versus creating, right? So spending more time watching what other people post, sell, or say, rather than actually creating your own thing or taking action yourself, because you end up start doubting yourself, right? You question your pricing, and then you dilute your energy because you're constantly comparing yourself between person to person, right? And the result of this is that you lose your originality, right? And then your energy follows as a result of that, right? So if we benchmark ourselves against yesterday's version of ourselves, not someone else's, that's where we're actually going to see success. I'm sure everyone can obviously attest for that, but even myself, it's just human nature. We all tend to compare ourselves to other people, but if we focus on growing and improving from the version that we were yesterday, that's where actually growth occurs, right? And you have to be proud and be obviously understanding of how far you've come versus others. How does that sound, everyone? The first one. Good. Awesome. Secondly, personal red traps. Okay, so shiny object syndrome. This is a pretty common one in entrepreneurship that I see a lot, but it's jumping from new offer, new business, new funnel, or new platform every month, right? Because people think they just want to go where the money is, right? But that obviously just doesn't actually build, right, long-term skills. It doesn't compound, and it doesn't actually help you build in a sustainable way that ultimately you need to actually be successful in anything, right? So every time we restart, we actually reset that compounding effect that sticking with one thing for a long time actually gives you. So the result, obviously, is you never really see the payoff of your hard work because you never actually stayed long enough with it to collect it, right? And actually achieve the things that you want to achieve. Simplicity scales, but mastery compounds universally between everything, right? Whether it be training, whether it be nutrition, and obviously with the fundamental business skills that obviously I'm so grateful to be teaching you all, within business as well. The third is emotional decision making, right? So essentially letting people, letting emotional, temporary emotions, right, dictate big moves in your business, right? Just some examples of this are lowering your prices on bad weeks, panicking when your engagement dips, chasing validation instead of obviously tracking data and making decisions based on that. And the result of this is your business becomes emotionally unstable because you actually are personally, right? Obviously, everyone can attest for this. Everyone's been in that point where everything feels like it's going wrong and you don't know what you're doing, right? But that's purely because you are making, I guess, decisions based on your emotional state at the time. So to overcome this, obviously we have to pause before we react, right? We also have to revisit data and then use logic before deciding, right, what moves we need to make business-wise. That's obviously quite logical, but it's something that's very, very prevalent amongst everyone. But amongst just people in business in general, right? The people who can shut out their emotions and then make logical decisions, even if it doesn't seem I can't really explain it, but you get an edge for it over time. The fourth thing is fear. Okay, because if you operate from fear, fear slows you down, and obviously fear, just ultimately just stores your business, right? Like I said, fear of obviously not growing as fast, fear of losing leads, or fear of being irrelevant, right? So with this fear, you actually end up start working more reactively instead of strategically, which actually slows down your growth, right? Which I feel like naturally as human beings, we get scared, right? Everyone gets scared. But if we can learn how to hone it in and then reframe it, we can actually act from a place of conviction and not fear. We can have faith wholeheartedly and back, our method, how we're going and helping people, the life that we actually want to build for ourselves, and then obviously the greater vision that creates the stability in your results and output for the long term, right? That's actually a very, very important thing, and it obviously ties back into the second point, which is obviously making sure that we're not just jumping between thing to thing all the time. Fifth, neglecting rest and routine. And this is obviously what I do this is what I do in the big business. If obviously all of you guys don't know, but I pretty much work with founders, executives, and their teams for this specific thing, because all of them work very, very hard, right? They like absolutely work crazy, crazy hours, but they don't take care of themselves, right? And if you don't have those embedded habits from the start, you'll treat self-care as optional until burnout forces you to stop, and then therefore business just completely stops, right? So the result of this is obviously energy crashes lead to emotional instability, like I was saying, poor client delivery, impulsive choices, and obviously ultimately, right, in some cases, the whole business just completely collapsing, right? So resting when needed, right, is actually a performance strategy, not a reward. And remember, growth obviously doesn't fix poor habits, right? It amplifies them, and discipline is what sustains momentum when emotion fades. And I'm sure, obviously, we're all very, very good at taking care of ourselves, right? But it's also a very, very important thing. Just as things continue to get busy, right? That you are doing those things to pull back when need be, to take that time to, just be by yourself, to go and train, to go and eat like clean and sleep, right? Super, super important. But the most visceral of all, what do you think it is, guys?
Is this still internal red flags?
Yes, this is personal. Yeah, it's still personal.
Not being yourself.
That's actually a good answer, but it's not the right one.
Close but no cigar.
Nick?
What does it start
Not-
with?
Not acknowledging the wins and good things that you've actually done, how far you've come.
That's a good one. That's a good one, but that's not the right answer. Mr. George, talk to me. What, Mr. George?
Oh, you can't hear me?
Oh no, I couldn't.
Oh shit, that's so awkward. Hating yourself.
Yeah. Nice.
I actually have no idea. I'm not sure.
I've spoken to most of obviously I've spoken to everyone pretty much about this, I think, already, but it's actually limiting beliefs.
I was about to say not believing in yourself. That was the next one.
Yeah. Limiting beliefs wholeheartedly is like the biggest thing that will stop you from growing. Because
Agreed.
if we continue telling ourselves that we're not ready, we're not as good as other people, I can't charge this much, who would buy from me? And what if this doesn't work? Then we'll always stay where we are. Because these are the projective narratives that your mind creates to keep you safe from rejection, from failure, and then embarrassment. Okay. But in business, the same beliefs that once protected you are the ones actually preventing you from growing. And I'm not just even saying this in business. In every aspect of your life, right, your limiting beliefs hold you back. Do you think Jerome actually would have been able to get to 132 kilos lean if he didn't believe in himself? Do you think Mel?
I still don't.
Well, do you think Mel would have built all this muscle if she didn't believe in herself? Do you think Nick would be the jacked philosopher that he is, believing in himself? And do you feel like Mr. George Adams, would have been such a handsome and amazing man that he is, not believing in himself?
Thank you.
That's right. But it's so true. It's so true. Because ultimately we all end up self-sabotaging before we can even build momentum in general. Okay. If we hesitate to launch that new offer, if we delay content because we end up when you go to self-sabotage, right, you're hesitating to launch that new offer, delaying content that could attract your next client, or underpricing yourself because you don't fully believe in your own value, right? And that's what I'm honing into everyone, right? You are more valuable than you think, and you can charge way more than you think. Jerome, obviously, we had that chat initially. You didn't think we can charge the price point that we're charging.
Definitely.
Nick obviously had that conversation too. George, we've had that conversation. And then Kev as well is here as well. Kev, say hi to everyone.
Hello, Kev.
Kev.
Hi.
Hey.
Sorry,
Kev.
I
Oh, yeah.
literally just got home.
Nah, bro, it's calm. It's calm. You got into like the most like transformative bit. It's perfect.
That's good. I need it.
Beautiful
Kev.
time.
This is everyone. Kev. And guys, meet Kev.
Nice to meet you,
Kev.
Kev.
Hey,
Nice to meet all of you too.
Awesome. Alrighty. But like I said, if we self-sabotage ourselves before we can build momentum, that's where growth actually stops. Okay? Because confidence doesn't come before action, right? It's actually created through action. Every time we follow through despite our fear, we stack confidence that we're capable of doing the things that we want to do. This evidence becomes belief, and this belief becomes conviction in yourself. Sometimes you need someone in your corner who sees what ultimately you all can't see yet, right? Like me, okay? I literally believe in every single one of you, and I don't doubt that you're able to achieve everything that you want to achieve. Someone who actually mirrors back the version of you that exists beyond your fear, right? Beyond your limiting beliefs, until you actually start to see it and believe it yourself. I have done a good job in putting confidence in all of you thus far. But yeah, I appreciate you all. I wholeheartedly believe in every single one of you, and I don't doubt we're all going to kill it. But our business and your business will never outperform your limiting beliefs, because your ceiling is determined by where you place it. And if you change your ceiling, that's the moment you will obviously decide how your business and life and everything pans out, right? You determine it, right? But if you put that ceiling on yourself, you're never going to get there.
Yeah.
So having that confidence, right, overcoming those limiting beliefs, and just having that person for support at the back of you is ultimately going to be how you're going to get to where you want to be, right? So that's the biggest thing that drives into all the other four or five that I spoke about earlier, is at the core is just limiting beliefs. What does everyone think of that?
True fact.
Agreed.
It makes sense.
Awesome.
Yeah. I guess off the back of that, I'll probably add in like, I think what's helped me with my limiting beliefs is getting better at sales. So obviously, pretty much everyone here probably knows all their shit when it comes to all that stuff. Jerome's pretty well versed in fucking everything, so he definitely can fucking charge it, right? But I think as well that confidence that comes along with actually getting better with sales, which I guess in turn sales, when you fucking break it down like we have, it's not that hard. It just comes down to practicing it. And then yeah, that's helped me. That's what I find has helped me.
100%. Sales is another big one. It's like sales is just a reflection of you and how you show up, to be honest.
Yeah. Because if you can talk out your ass, even if you don't know anything, you can make a sale, right? And if you do know everything, why can't we believe in ourselves when we do try and not even convince someone, but just say the things they need to hear. And just learning that kind of process or that sales process, I think it's just once you learn that, it makes it a lot easier. It did for me, at least.
100%. And I think it comes back to, I think once you see, you're obviously putting in action, you're getting better, and then results come as a result, like of everything.
Yeah.
That's when you build that more confidence in yourself that you can do the thing.
Yeah.
Nick, I'm sure you felt the same thing.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I remember early on in the weeks you spoke about price, and I remember thinking, how the hell am I going to charge that much? Who's going to buy that from me? And I think the week after or 2 weeks after, we did the whole sales call structure, and I go, yeah, that makes sense. And like, I know that I'm confident that I know my shit. I just didn't know how to present it to people in a way that I could justify charging that much. But yeah, once I learned that whole process, and it makes sense, very logical. Yeah, I'm very confident in a sales call now.
I'm glad. I'm super, super glad. And I hope Jerome feels that way too. I mean, he closed his first PIF tonight, which is amazing.
Hell yeah, nice.
Slowly improving.
No,
Slowly
bro,
improving.
you're doing amazing, dude. Like compared
Stop
to
being humble. Good
yeah,
job.
literally. Mel's next and Kev's next.
I know. I'm excited to practice. I 100% agree that just with practice, you build momentum and confidence.
Absolutely. We tried to do a role play the other day, but
I was telling Jerome about this.
and then
You can practice. You can practice. You can practice what?
I can't have someone watching me. I need to do it on my own.
not fair.
That's what I'm saying.
I used to be like that too, to be fair.
No.
Yeah, that makes me feel better. Thanks, guys.
Yeah,
It's like practicing in front of your mum for like a year six speech.
yeah, fuck that.
You just buckle.
No, for sure. Kev, you good?
Hello, everyone.
Mr. George, what's going on?
Good, good. Just on the way back from training a client.
You beauty. Love it. And Kev, you good?
Yes, I think my internet's just shit.
That's okay. Like all of us, don't worry.
Yeah.
All right, awesome. Well, those are all the personal, I guess.
If you've watched up to this far and you're starting to realize that you may not potentially be having a strategy problem, but more a problem of how you think and operate on a day-to-day, then this is the change that most coaches never make. Because it's easy to keep telling yourself, I just need to make better content, I just need more leads, I just need to tweak my offer. But if you're being honest, you've probably already tried that and nothing really changed. Because the problem isn't what you're doing, it's actually how you're approaching the entire business. And until that changes, everything you build will continue to feel unstable, no matter how hard you work. So as you're watching this, don't listen passively. I want you to be actually reflecting on everything. And if at any point so far, you felt like this is exactly what I've been dealing with, just shoot me a message on Insta and I'll do my best to point you in the right direction. But for now, let's get back to the video.
Blockers, right? That will stop obviously growth in business. But the next set are obviously operational red flags, okay? So things that are actually inside of the business. The first thing is not actually tracking anything, okay? Because if you're not tracking anything, there's no control, right? You know how much you're making, but you don't know how much you're keeping. You can celebrate sales, but you forget to measure your profit, your lead flow, or follow-ups, right? And if everything feels like it's working until cash dries up or clients stop replying, or you're just not organized essentially within the business, right? So tracking everything is really, really important. Make sure that we're organized and that everything is going well. And to do this, right, we build visibility, right, and systems that show us where our business actually stands, right? Track inflow and outflow weekly of what's profit, not just revenue. I'm working on this with Berenice, for all of you guys, so don't even stress about that. I'll send you all one. 2, obviously using a CRM or a lead tracker, like obviously we've been doing, right? I sent you all that CRM, so that way we can actually track everything properly, because we can't improve what we don't measure, right? What seems like potentially a sales problem, maybe a tracking problem, or vice versa, right? We're just not clear on those specific things, all right? Second, over-reliance on manual tasks, okay? One of the biggest, I think, issues or things people can't really come to terms with when it comes to business, because founders try and do everything themselves, right? Whether it be onboarding, scheduling, content, and messages, right? But the actual result of that, right? You become the bottleneck, right? Your business halts when you take a break or take time off or something happens, right? So to overcome it, we have to automate and delegate, and obviously create systems that buy back energy and creativity when and only when you're at the stage in which you're able to do so. So that's obviously an important nuance. But the core thing is, we only really want to be doing 20% of the work that drives 80% of the results as a business owner, right?
When would you, just a question, JP, when would you actually qualify a business reaching a stage where we would implement the delegating?
It really depends. So revenue-wise, obviously, it has to be at a certain point, but I think, understanding the systems and understanding the fundamental skills, so you can actually coach through the delegate through it properly, right? Now, some of the boys are better revenue markers than others, right, and probably could justify, right, getting in a VA, but you need to still keep building those fundamental skills and obviously make clear SOPs on how you want them to be done, right, in order to actually execute them properly. Because if you don't, then it's just going to create even more of a headache, right? And then you're going to revert back to wanting to just do it yourself. Isn't what you ideally want.
Mm.
So it just ends up wasting more time and more money, right?
Yeah.
Learning the skills first, and then making sure everything's clear beforehand is like most importantly. Like obviously we've done with George. We've just gotten him a VA, right? She's obviously just started, but we spent like a good 2 to 3 weeks like refining all the backend systems, right? Filling it out in SOPs and making sure everything was organized before going ahead with it. Because if I wasn't there beforehand, it just would have been like absolutely, yeah, it just wouldn't have been good.
That was the worst part to do, by the way. But yeah, it's been pretty helpful ever since. And it's only been like a week, and I'm still teaching her because I'm getting her to do a lot of my editing. And there's other things that she's doing as well. Don't get me wrong, but she needs to learn editing, and that's not like her strong point. So I have to be understanding that she's learning a new skill too.
Yeah.
She's getting paid for it, yes, but it's going to help. It's going to pay off in the long run. But that's what a lot of my shit's going to be delegated to her. That way, I don't have to do that because editing is such a fucking. You know how much time it takes. You guys know.
It took me an hour and a half to edit the reel that I posted today, and it was just a talking head reel.
Exactly right.
Yeah, I know.
And so that's what I'm getting a lot her to do a lot for me, and some outbound and stuff, and some other backend shit. But yeah,
good stuff, bro. That's good. I'm happy for you.
Yeah.
Well, so just an investment back into it, right? So hopefully it can generate more.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Like for example, with my VA Bernice, when she came in, we like 2.5x the revenue just because I could focus on like on serving you guys and doing what needed to be done, right? Like I said, doing the 20% that drives 80%.
Yep.
Awesome. Is that clear with everyone too?
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. Next is poor client segmentation. Okay, so what I mean by that is by every client getting the same plan, same offer, same process, and same check-in structure. Okay, advanced clients feel bored, beginners can feel lost. So having different offers for different people based on themselves is super, super important, right? But depending on what stage you are at in terms of like skill level and development is where we should implement these offers, right? So this way, obviously, it really just depends. But obviously, like I've explained with everyone, right, building tiers, building different categories, all levels tailored to obviously your ICP's level is really, really important because clarity beats complexity. But also, if they're not feeling like obviously that they're getting the value for what they need, obviously it's obviously not ideal. For example, right, putting obviously Ivy isn't here. Ivy and I obviously were just talking, and he ended up signing up with Brian Mark, right, quite recently. Okay, but because he was at a different level than what he was in, he didn't feel like he was actually getting any value from it at all, even though he had been sold on it, and he already just wants to leave, right? So making sure that you're tailoring everything to the individual based on where they are is super, super important as well, right? That's obviously a nuance too. For example, right, obviously some of us are at different stages of businesses, but I'm not gonna give, say for example, Kev, like over complicated, obviously business tactics, right? If he's still building the foundations versus someone like obviously George, Nick, and obviously George A, right? Because they're at different stages in their business, or even Ivy, right? As another example. So making sure that we're tailoring everything towards the individual is important, super, super important. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Sweet. Fourth thing is scaling without systems, right? So pretty much back to the delegation thing. But if we push for more clients without improving delivery or obviously ways in which to streamline it all, quality drops, client leaves, and reputation suffers. This is something that I guess, someone that we all know, I think is struggling right now.
I think so.
Because he didn't have the right systems in place. His quality suffered, right? And I think obviously on top of that, right, he just, didn't think realistically of people who could genuinely serve properly, right? So that way things were sustainable, right? So we need to systemize before we scale or take on too many clients, because scaling only obviously just multiplies stress, right? And everything becomes chaos. the biggest question we want to ask ourselves is, if I stepped away from the business for a week for something, right, would the business still function, or will it fall apart, right? If you can confidently say that the business can continue running by itself and you're fine, then you're sweet. But in most cases, and even honestly, it's still in my case, right, I can't take time away from the business yet because I'm just not at that stage either. But ideally, everyone wants to go and get to that stage where they can confidently go away and be like, all right, sweet, I'm gonna go like to the Bahamas or something and just like chill for a week or like something like that. Who knows? Anything you really want, right? But that's ultimately super, super important. Okay. Now the last one is client red flags, which I think ultimately, like, all of these are super important interwoven together, but client red flags actually are super, super, important too. The first is blame driven one, blame driven clients. Okay. These are the ones that externalize every single issue. Right? They blame everything else except themselves, right? They don't take accountability. So the plan didn't work. I was too busy. You didn't check in enough with me, right? You didn't obviously give me as much support as you ideally wanted to. The result of this is emotional drain or retention, and obviously, just obviously downward growth within your business, like just no growth at all. So the way to spot this is actually, throughout the sales process, right? So when you're qualifying them in the DMs, right, in sales calls specifically, we ask them deep questions, right, that actually reveal accountability early, right? Obviously, within the sales call framework that I've given you all, we've actually able to do that naturally, right? So that way you can actually see people's true intentions, right? See whether or not it actually, they're obviously, you can see the behaviors. And even a big one is just talking around to other people, see if they've obviously had this person on the phone before. Like, for example, George, earlier on in the year, George had this client come through on a call, right, who I actually had seen and had followed for a while. And he was like in Bali doing this and that, but he was with another coach, right? And then after 2 weeks, he like stopped and then went with and wanted to try and go with George. And I told him beforehand, I'm like, bro, I don't know. Like, I don't think he will stay with you just based off that. But he never even showed up for any of the calls, including.
Yeah, that was fucked. That he also, I'm pretty sure he lied about his brother having died, just so he could skip the call, and then seen me, and then promised he'll get on the next one, and then blocked me just before the next call. It was like 3 calls we scheduled. It was fucking retarded.
Anyway, you get the point, guys. Secondly, are price-sensitive clients. Okay, people who always want discount or deals, right? Value your time by the dollar, and not necessarily the transformation or the outcome that they want to achieve, or the value that you provide, right? They're typically the first to leave and the last to refer. Okay, so in order to do this, we lead with value, we lead with conviction, and people respect certainty more than persuasion. But also, I think a big thing just in life, right, is you want to put out what you give in return, right? Energy is super transferable, right, between everyone. And if you put out a certain, obviously, if you want to attract a certain person back on the phone, right, you have to put that thing out, right? So if you want, a committed client, you have to show that you are committed, right, in your actions that you do, but also more importantly, in the way you portray yourself. Quite self-explanatory, right? If you want to get your dream girl, right, or your dream man, Mel, you go ahead and obviously act right in the way that you want to be received, or the qualities that the person wants, right? You want to be able to portray that, so that way you get it back in return. Laws of physics, am I right? All right. Third is emotionally unstable buyers. Okay, people who just buy on impulse and just when things get hard, right? I'm sure everyone's had these types of sales before, but pretty much just people buy on impulse. I had, for example, one of my clients earlier this year when I was still like just doing direct fitness coaching. He was an old client, and he wanted to get started. He signed up and everything, like after a client re-signed, and within like 2 weeks, he was like, I can't do it anymore, right? So emotionally, so you can obviously tell by people's behavior, right, whether they're a bit more emotional or not. But people, obviously, you need emotion to close a sale, right? But typically, like obviously the saying is, they buy off emotion, but they justify it with logic, right? We need to make sure that we're going through both stages of it, because if we don't, they end up going through buyer's remorse, right? Which ends up meaning it's pretty much just, it's a fancy term for they regret making the decision, right? And obviously purchasing. So obviously the result of this is they derail progress, they question everything, and they hurt morale. So the way to go about this is obviously slow down our sales process, right? Mirror their energy before matching their commitment. Now, number 4, a big one that I obviously hone into everyone is there's just no skin in the game. Okay. Client red flags is because no one really follows through because there's no emotional nor financial stake, right? You work harder than they do for them, which isn't what you want, right? You want to work as hard as physically possible, but they're the only one at the end of the day that can get them to where they want to be, right? So we always need to create buy-in, whether it be emotionally and financially. Emotionally, right? Going through a very, very in-depth discovery with them, right, and understanding them at a deep level, and then financially by obviously giving them, right, a price point that they obviously need to commit to, right, wholeheartedly. So those are the 2 big things. And then number 5, and I think arguably probably one of the biggest ones that I say, are misaligned values, right, just with yourself in general. Okay, clients who disrespect boundaries, chase shortcuts, and operate with different principles, right, in terms of life, right, not even just business-wise and training-wise, just in life, right, I don't think they're worth your time, because they ultimately corrupt the culture that you ultimately want to build, right? They consume your energy and they drain it, right? So ultimately we want to protect our standards. It's easy to prevent a problem than to fix one. George and I had an example on our coaching call today, George A, of his old fitness first manager. George?
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
Yeah. And pretty much he didn't really treat, I think, George very well. He didn't treat anyone really well when they were working with him, but now he's coming back and obviously wanting to coach with George, right? And he obviously knows his poor habits, right? How he treats people. I've advised him as best as physically possible not to bother, right? And just to focus on someone else. But George, I think, like, in these situations, I think you should give them an opportunity with a call, right? Just to see, but I wouldn't necessarily go ahead. That's what I've advised George to do, but ultimately it's his decision at the end of the day. But yeah, for everyone, if they're not aligned on your values and right, for a fact that they wouldn't be a good fit for you, genuinely don't sign them on, right? Regardless of the money.
Yeah.
It's not worth it.
The only reason I'm doing it, I told you as well, is just because I worked with him for 4 years. I know the bloke inside and out, and I know what he's gonna be difficult with, which is actually listening and implementing instead of trying to fight back. So if I tell him, I'm going to tell him from the start in our call, hey, this needs to happen, otherwise this is not going to work, by the way, and I'm just going to cut it short, And if he starts to do that shit, I'm just not going to bother. It's not going to be worth my money or my time. Sorry.
Absolutely.
So only because I know him like that.
Yeah, 100%. That's why I think if there is a situation like that, just obviously be open, right? Be open to help, be open to have a chat. But if it ends up being, same stuff that you know them for, then don't bother. It's not worth your time or money. Does that make sense, everyone? I think Jerome's gone to get some rice in the rice cooker. Alrighty. Because the clients you compromise, right? The clients you compromise for are the ones who actually cost you the most, right? Not obviously money-wise, or maybe even money-wise later down the track, but time-wise, emotionally, right? All those sort of things, right? It's just not worth your time. You want to be working with people who you ultimately want to work with at the end of the day, which is why I've honed in and tried to get you all so clear on your ICP. It's like silly, but yeah. The CEO decision framework, okay? So this is a framework that I have, obviously I've done a pretty bad job of, I guess, the arrows, but I had like 2 minutes before the call to do the arrows. But obviously you will get a copy of all this. So the first is obviously zooming out and having perspective over panic, right? So before reacting, we need to step back and actually obviously understand and question what the real objective is and what we're doing. What game are we playing? Are we actually just looking to survive, or are we looking to scale for the long term? Second is obviously measuring, right, with clarity over emotion. So looking at data, not necessarily, just based off your feelings, what's actually true in the numbers, not necessarily obviously narratives that, you build in your head or anything along the lines of any limiting beliefs that you have. Three, obviously prioritize. So focusing over noise. So not all problems in your business deserve equal attention, right? Despite what people think. We need to find the one domino, right? Or the one big, like, I don't even know the analogy, but like the biggest problem in your business first, right? That essentially, makes others irrelevant or easier to solve, right? Before doing so. Fourth is executing, which ultimately is super, super important, right? Is obviously executing with speed over perfection, okay? Because nothing's ever perfect at the end of the day, right? No matter how much time you put into it. So good founders, good CEOs decide fast and refine later, right? Or just implement as quick as possible. Perfectionism is just ultimately a fear of looking bad, I think, at the end of the day. But fifth is just reflecting and obviously growing instead of feeling guilty, right? So detaching from our ego, reviewing what's worked, what didn't, and then just moving forward, right? And just continuing to improve, right? Ultimately, that's probably the biggest thing over anything. Does that make sense for the decision framework?
Yeah.
Thank you, George, and thank you, Mel. Alrighty. Emotional detachment and delusional confidence. I don't know if I've spoken about, I guess, emotional detachment. I've spoken about delusional confidence at base level, but I want to expand on these things a bit more because I think within business, these are probably the two biggest things that I guess every high level successful person just has, right? They're just common traits that people have, right? So first, obviously with emotional detachment, not saying that you shouldn't feel your emotions, but you shouldn't tie your identity to the outcomes that you obviously want, right, in life. Because wins or losses are both just feedback, right, of how you're doing at the current point in time. And detachment actually gives you a sense of obviously power over the actual thing in itself, because it actually makes you make proper decisions based on logic. That's not ego driven. It's not obviously based on emotions. It's not anything, right? Not based on pride. It's based on the real hardcore facts, but also the fact if it also just saves you a lot of emotional turmoil. Because I'm sure everyone can attest, right? We all stress so much about the end goal, right? And we stress ourselves out too much that it actually ends up working against us, not with us, right? And it stops us from getting to where we want to be. So if we learn to just step back, right, enjoy the journey, which I think is the most important thing in business, but in life as well, right? Life's a roller coaster, as everyone says, I guess. Super important. Now, the second is delusional confidence, okay? And I'm not saying to be completely irrational or illogical, but you need to believe that your success is inevitable before the result show it, right? And that's just like fundamental for business, right? It's not arrogance, it's faith combined with execution, right? True confidence, like we said, is built from evidence, and consistent reps lead to self-trust, right? If you don't believe yourself before anyone else does, no one's ever going to believe in you, right? I'm sure we can all attest for that, right? And it's super important to actually just genuinely back yourself no matter what. So I highly recommend some level of delusional confidence in yourself. I don't think George, however many years ago now, 10 years ago, when he was 60 kilos, right, depressed, obviously, leading towards other things, right, think he'd be in the position that he is today. Same with Mel, right? Same with Nick, same with George, same with Kev, same with Jerome, right? We all have to have some level of confidence in ourselves to ultimately just become the person that we need to become, right? Despite what people think, right? And despite the, I guess, validation that you get from everyone else. Hell, even to this day, right? My parents don't even understand what I do. No one understands what I do. Like, I go and like talk to them. Like, I can't talk to them about business because they just don't understand it. They don't like, and they don't think that like, anyway.
I think it's nothing. It's like, oh, it's just how cute. He's doing a little business.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Today, for an example, I saw my mum's cousin, so not really that close, but like we grew up together. And he was saying, like, I told him, yeah, like I've got like 2 businesses now, yada yada yada. And He was like, "Oh, that's really good. That's really good. You should do Uber on the side."
Oh, fuck off.
And I was like, I know he said it out of like a place of love, right? But it's like obviously just people don't understand, right?
Yeah.
I think to be fair, this whole online coaching, online making money space is honestly really, really young. Like it hasn't been around for that long. So it obviously is hard for people to understand, like outside of obviously the people who are in it. But yeah, I just wanted to share that with everyone because, you know, everyone feels that same way, right?
Yeah. Agreed.
I love the dog, Mel. But what,
Oh, you can see.
yeah,
Look
show
now.
us, show us. Hello.
She was licking my leg, so I had to. It was annoying me, so I had to lift her up.
Nice. Nice. But like I was saying earlier, right, we're almost done, guys. I know this has been a very, very long presentation, but energy flows where conviction lies, right? And this is from a book called Energy Transferring, Reality Transferring from Vadim Zetlin, right? I recommend everyone to read this book because it's like absolutely ridiculous. Like, it's insane.
If you saw yourself in any part of this video, in the way you think, in the way you operate, or even the types of clients you've been dealing with, just understand this. Most businesses don't break because of one big mistake. They break because of small patterns that go unnoticed for too long. And eventually, this inconsistency catches up. So if you're at that point where you know you're capable of more, but things still feel unstable behind the scenes, but if you actually want to scale to 20 to 30K a month, it's probably time to fix what's actually causing it. If you want help doing that properly, fixing the way you operate, tightening your messaging, and building something sustainable that actually grows, just send me a message on Instagram. We can have a genuine chat to see where you're actually at, and I'll do everything in my power to point you in the right direction.